Hello, I'm Susan Braley. I gratefully acknowledge the Sartlip and Sawit peoples on whose traditional territories we gather and create. Today I'm going to share some poems from my collection Tilling the Darkness, soon to be published, I hope. It was startling for me as a farm girl to see how swiftly seedlings became crops turned down. But I learned that the plow also draws deep nourishment up. This opening poem features my father tilling with the plow, preparing the ground for a new crop. Only one round in his field. The furrow beneath his plow, clean and true. Plowshares lifting at the moment fresh till met the headland. My father, a cartographer. He stopped the tractor, his eyes warmed as I climbed up, sat on the red fender wider than the length of my arm. I reached over to grasp the edge of his seat. He didn't need to say, only one round. He didn't say anything. It was too loud to talk anyway. The tractor surged, bore down, guttural, thrum of metal in the soles of my feet. The narrow head of the tractor pressed up the slope, like a lead horse, imperious, through rubble and muck. I tightened my grip over bumps. Dad didn't reach over to steady me. He sat sideways, calm, eye on the plow. He presided. On the plow, thin discs slit the ground, then curved shares carved deep into clay, lifted the underside up, carved again. The furrow slices rolled over, gleaming, dark earth pelts. On our return home down the slope, the field stretched acres wide on either side, like the open-air theater I'd seen in a book. Black furrows on our left, bleached stubble on our right, like great banners laid down, dark and light. Gulls swooped, cried out, proprietary. Rogue wind in our faces. Clouds mounted high in the sky, gunpowder gray, weighty. I longed to stay with him. But he dropped me off, a little smile, then his back. Bank loans, the mind likely churning, calf with pneumonia. Bank loans. The tractor roared on. The air so still, close to the ground. Along the furrow, curved mounds laid bare. I searched their seams for glass button, blue bottle, broken plate. Tilling the Darkness explores how we all undertake this tilling ritual, season after season, in the finite field of our lives. Our darkness may be a grave, an otherness, a war, a grief, and our wish is for the promise of renewal. This next poem came to me when I visited the Canadian War Cemetery in Groesbeek, the Netherlands. In April 1946, the remains of over 2,000 Canadian soldiers buried in German battlefields were returned to graves on this Allied soil. Spring planting, or Requiem for Repatriated Soldiers. In the fall, when the field is spent, let it fallow. Let the bled earth sleep like a womb after birth, like the sea at its lowest ebb. Let stubble hoard the snow, free of plowshare blade and half-moon hoof. In the spring, let April nurse the ground, soft with rain, then wind from the south. Cast alfalfa over the land. Let its pea shoots quicken, its heart buds bloom. Let the green green. Just past its youth, strike it down and turn it underneath. Blood of the Lamb. Let the season pass, and the field will renew. Throughout Tilling the Darkness, it is often women who turn dark toward light, In this next poem, rural women are gathered around the quilt frame, stitching the 3 layers of a quilt together. In my youth, I thought their needles could mend anything. The poem is written in a French form called a triolet. The repeating rhyme pattern is an echo of the needlework itself. Women mending. Imagine borders torn asunder, while women glide needles up, under, thread front, back, north and south together. Imagine borders, torn asunder, fallen lands, pinned on maps in war rooms. Quilt stitches join patches bright as fields. Imagine. Borders sundered, sundered, while women glide needles up, under. The next 2 poems deal with the prehistoric, the place where we find our deepest origins. The first is entitled The Egved Girl. The remains of this young woman, born in 370 BC, were discovered in a Danish bog in 1921. They're now displayed in the National Museum of Denmark. Her body is more soil than flesh, and yet, the Egved Girl. Her corded wool skirt short, the color of peat. Her cropped top a style my niece would wear. The bronze belt plate a caught sun at her waist. I expected to find the idea of her, a costume. Her bones had dissolved, leaving only scraps of teeth, tissue, nails, in the hollowed oak, her coffin. She was 16, perhaps a German bride pledged to a chief far from home. The Danes buried her with care, wrapped her feet against cold, her body in oxhide, gifted her with hairpins, honeyed beer. I did not expect the uterine pull from that mushroom-dark grave, the rush of tenderness in my throat, her hair buttery waves where her face would have been. The oxhide lay open to expose the girl's clothes, intact but stained, askewed. I wanted to untangle the woven strings of her skirt, untie the round-backed antler comb on her belt, place it in her hand, slip the small bracelets onto childlike wrists. I wanted to spread the blanket that once covered her as any mother or sister would, over her ghost limbs. I wanted to unsee her, uncovet her, give her privacy. Above her hair, a swirl of wool holds the ashes of a young child in a birch bark cup, bone shards thin as fingernails, too charred to decode. Had a love child once lain on her chest, in the place where sorrowful Danes set flowering yarrow? I don't want to be told. Let the Egved girl, broken open, laid bare for the last 100 years, go on hoarding her secrets. The women in Tilling the Darkness struggle against misogyny, but they may also be seers and healers. Women's power in this collection is evoked through female icons like the Paleolithic Venus of Willendorf. Stone Venus, bulbous breasts, swollen belly, Ice Age fertility figure. Utilic, made from a stone egg the size of an infant head. She fits easily into a hand. In 1908, archaeologists don't want to call her Venus, this limestone stub from Willendorf, Austria, this bit of gravel. Did the hunters carve her form by the fire at night? By day, perhaps she clung to the inside of a pocket as they gave chase. Wild horses plunging over the Stranska cliffs. She was found naked, except for bracelets on negligible wrists, arms kindling sticks resting on breasts. her feet thick toes. Oh, and a hat, nubbled like the surface of a golf ball, or knitted like a toque for winter, or hair braided in horizontal rows with the smallest whorl on top, or an upside-down basket pulled over her nose. She is blinded, unless you count a nearby pockmark as an eye. A goddess must not be seen, a scholar states, or perhaps he must not see. Ice Age fertility goddesses surfaced in Danube alluvia, scattered like ghosts in settlements, near dark stains where hearths might have been. They were at home, hidden in dwellings, buried in small pits, safeguarded. Perhaps carved by women, who, looking down at their own bodies, rendered accurately the fullness of breasts, the round of belly in the last trimester, the eye of navel, women born from an egg and still of it, painted with red ochre, color of blood, of menses and birth. On being found, this Venus is cleaned before being placed in a museum. Like a newborn purged of mother fluids, a woman scrubbed after bleeding. Residue of ochre in the creases of navel and breast. Red, yes, but more. Rubio root, scarab ink, Hestian fire, alchemy. My final poem brings us back to a contemporary woman who, like Venus of Willendorf, finds power, but in her own kind of field. A woman leaps. The day after he left, she ran her tongue along her top teeth, expected a gap. She dreamed she flung a grapple to the far side of a gorge. It clawed the air, dropped over a mile into the rift. A week after he left, she stopped wearing his mustard cardigan, the one he couldn't stretch over his waist. She tore out the milk thistle he'd grown for his prostate, shot each prickled stalk at the compost heap, didn't miss. A month after he left, she built a gravel bioswale across the yard, where, after 5 rains, the lawn leapt, free of toxins. After that, she became a synapse firing, flying sovereign over the cleft.